In a world where skills define your worth, a monster is about to wake up. Blood splatters and screams echo as creatures are torn apart. This is the start of a hunger that can never be satisfied. Devour everything. Devour them all. A lone figure moves with lethal grace, leaving a trail of destruction behind. Every kill, every drop of blood, it's all just food for the beast within. The command is absolute. Devour. Meet Fate Graphite. This is the story of a boy who was once deemed worthless, only to rise and overthrow those who look down on him. Behind that mask lies a power that exceeds the very concept of levels. His journey through the abyss begins now. Welcome to Seyfert, the capital city, a place of order, high walls, and a cruel social hierarchy built on the skills people are born with. To some, it's a paradise. To others, it's a cage. Down at the bottom of this world is Fate Graphite, a young man working as a lowly gatekeeper. His stomach growls with a hunger that never stops, a constant reminder of the useless skill he was cursed with. His skill, gluttony, is a failure. It gives him no stats, no combat power, just an endless, gnawing hunger that makes his life a living hell. Hey, Fate, a voice calls out, breaking his miserable train of thought. It's the Brerick brothers, arrogant holy knights who take pleasure in tormenting those beneath them. Raffle Brerick stands at the front, mocking Fate for his station while throwing his wages for the day onto the ground like scraps for a dog. Fate can only look down, swallowing his pride as he reaches for the coins. Raffle's cruel smirk widens. He doesn't just want to pay Fate, he wants to break him. Pick it up, he demands, enjoying every second of the humiliation. Suddenly, a heavy boot stomps down on Fate's hand, crushing it against the stone tiles. Raffle feigns a casual apology, but the malice in his eyes tells a different story. He treats human beings like dirt under his feet. Fate grits his teeth, his face pale from pain and hunger. Raffle leans in close, insulting him further. To these knights, Fate isn't even a person. He's just something dirty they overlooked. The abuse continues as they kick him while he's down. They call him a maggot, a piece of trash that should be grateful for even being hired. They believe they're the ones keeping him alive, using their status to justify their cruelty. Stop that at once. A sharp, commanding voice cuts through the air. The knights freeze. Someone has finally had enough of their petty games. It's Roxy Hart, a noble holy knight with long blonde hair and a sense of justice that her peers lack. She stands tall, her expression one of pure disappointment and anger at the shameful behavior of the other knights. Raffle and his group back off immediately, grumbling under their breath. They know they can't mess with Roxy. As they leave, Roxy turns her attention to the battered boy on the ground. She calls his name with genuine concern. Fate. She reaches out a hand to help him up, asking if he's all right. Fate is stunned. In a city where he's treated like garbage, a holy knight, someone at the very top, is showing him kindness. It's almost more than he can handle. Fate tries to brush it off, saying it always happens, but Roxy isn't having it. She tells him there's no need to thank her. Protecting people is simply the duty of a holy knight. She even offers her help if they ever bother him again. Fate looks into her kind eyes and realizes something painful. She's too good for this world. He's just a useless gatekeeper, and she's a shining light. He shouldn't be near her. He shouldn't drag her into his misery. Nah, he thinks this is no good. He quickly excuses himself, turning away before he can get more involved. He doesn't want her to waste her time on someone like him. He has to walk his own path, even if it leads nowhere. Later that night, Fate heads to a small, run-down tavern in the slums. It's the only place someone with his wages can afford to eat, though even here, he feels out of place among the regulars. He sits at the bar, slumped over as a simple meal of soup and bread is served. His body is at its limit. The hunger is still there, but exhaustion is starting to take over. He looks like a shell of a person. The tavern owner, a middle-aged man with a beard, strikes up a conversation. He asks about the job at the gate and suggests Fate try some meat for a change. Fate just gives a weak smile. He's forgotten what meat even tastes like. Meat is for those with money, not for him. The owner looks at Fate with pity. He warns the boy that at this rate, he'll end up like his predecessor, dead from hard labor and endless problems. In this city, useless people are worked until they break, and then they're replaced. Fate stares at his reflection in the water. Death from overwork, huh? He mutters. The reality of his situation is sinking in. He's been living like this for 5 years, and he knows his time is running out. The world is waiting to devour him. Fate trudges back through the dark, quiet streets, his mind heavy with the tavern owner's grim warning. He's lived like this for 5 years, but he knows he's finally reached his breaking point. At this rate, he's just another nameless soul waiting for the city's shadows to claim him. But suddenly, the shadows move. Fate freezes as he spots figures scaling the city walls. Bandits. They found a blind spot the guards can't see. Realizing the danger Roxy might be in, desperation overrides his exhaustion. He can't let her get hurt. He has to warn her before it's too late. Roxy Selma. Fate cries out, running towards the golden-haired knight. Roxy's heart turns, her face full of confusion as she sees the desperate look in the boy's eyes. "What's wrong?" she asks, immediately sensing the urgency. Fate quickly explains that bandits have managed to scale the eastern wall. Roxy is shocked by the news. Fate admits he doesn't have concrete evidence, but he's absolutely certain of what he saw. Roxy searches his eyes, seeing no trace of a lie. She doesn't hesitate for a second. "I'll believe you," Roxy says with a firm, trusting smile. She tells Fate she'll head to the scene immediately and asks him to keep watch here while she's gone. Fate is stunned that a holy knight would trust a word from someone like him. "Of course," he replies, gripping his spear with newfound purpose. He watches Roxy's silhouette disappear into the night, her armor gleaming as she runs toward the danger. For the first time, Fate feels like more than just a useless shadow. He stands alone at his post, his heart pounding against his ribs. Suddenly, the silence of the night is shattered by the sounds of distant combat, the clang of steel, crashes, and shouts. Fate looks toward the city, sweating. Is it over? Top, top, top. Heavy, uneven footsteps echo from the dark tunnel. Fate grips his spear, his hands trembling. Someone is approaching from the darkness, and they aren't moving like a friend. A hooded man stumbles out of the shadows, wheezing and clutching a bleeding wound. He looks desperate, like a cornered animal. The bandit's eyes lock onto Fate, and his expression twists into a murderous snarl. One of them is escaping. Fate realizes. The bandit doesn't stop. He draws a jagged blade and lunges. Fate's mind races. If he lets this man go, Roxy will be the one blame for the failure. "Even I should be able to," he screams, charging forward. Stab! In a blur of movement and adrenaline, Fate drives his spear deep into the bandit's chest. The impact vibrates up his arms as the blade sinks through cloth and flesh. Time seems to slow down as the life begins to drain from his enemy. The bandit coughs up a spray of blood, his eyes wide with shock and disbelief. He can't believe he's been taken down by a mere gatekeeper. His ragged breaths falter, ending in a final, gurgling wheeze before his body goes limp. It's over. Fate stands over the body, gasping for air as the adrenaline begins to fade. He's actually managed to defeat a real enemy. "Thank God," he whispers, his legs nearly giving out. But then, a terrifying sensation washes over his entire body. A cold, mechanical voice echoes directly into his brain. Gluttony skill activated. The system begins adding new skills to his status: mind reading and appraisal. Fate stands frozen, his heart hammering in his chest. What did he just do? In this world, people are born into two categories. The line between them is absolute. You either possess a special power granted by God, or you are nothing more than a loser meant to be stepped on. Power is everything. Those with powerful skills battle monsters, grow stronger, and gain levels, rising to the top of society. Meanwhile, those without them are doomed to a life of misery and insignificance, rotting away in the shadows. At least, that was how the world was supposed to work. Fate lies on his threadbare mat, looking up at the ceiling of his cramped room. Deep inside, he feels a hunger that has finally been fed, and the world he knew is about to be turned upside down. Appraisal, fate whispers. A blue status screen flickers into life. He's still level 1, but his stats, stamina, strength, magic, they've all exploded by over 100 points. He was average just yesterday. Now, he possesses strength that shouldn't be possible. He looks at the new skill, mind reading. It allows him to see into the thoughts of those he touches. Looking at his blood-stained hands, he remembers the dying bandit. I see, so that's why. Fate realizes he didn't just kill that man. He literally consumed his power. Fate is still struggling to process the horror of his awakening when Roxy Hart returns from the wall. He's leaning on his spear, looking completely spent. Roxy spots him and immediately rushes over. Roxy is frantic with worry, grabbing his hands and checking for injuries. She notes how pale he's become, her heart aching for the boy who had to stand his ground all alone against the darkness. "Are you all right?" she asks softly. No, nothing. I'm fine." Fate stammers, his face heating up at her touch. Roxy lets out a long sigh of relief, a beautiful smile returning to her face. She's genuinely glad he wasn't hurt, her kindness shining through her armor. Roxy pulls back, regaining her composure. She needs to report the incident to her superiors immediately. But as she speaks, Fate hears a faint whisper in his mind, her thoughts. He's reading her mind without even trying. What was that just now? He wonders, shocked. Fate realizes he can't let anyone know about his new power. He looks at Roxy and asks for a favor. Regarding that, is it possible to let today's achievements be all yours? He wants to vanish back into the shadows. Roxy is confused, but Fate explains his reasoning. He only dealt the final blow. She did the real fighting. More importantly, if Raffle Brerick finds out he actually did something useful, his life at the gate will only get worse. He just wants to survive. Roxy sighs, her gaze softening as she looks at the exhausted boy. She understands the cruel reality of the Brerick brothers and respects Fate's wish to remain in the shadows for his own safety. I understand, she whispers, her eyes filled with a new kind of respect. I will take the credit, just as you've asked. But Roxy's sense of justice won't let her stop there. She knows that without Fate's warning, the night could have ended in tragedy. However, I cannot simply ignore what you did today, she insists, her gaze sharpening with a sudden idea. I must find a way to properly thank you. Fate doesn't realize it yet, but the path of his life is about to shift in a way he never dreamed possible. Fate looks down, his heart heavy with conflict. I know, he thinks. If she gets involved with me, it would only cause her trouble. To him, he's still just the useless gatekeeper who hasn't done anything worthy of a holy knight's gratitude. But Roxy Hart isn't finished with her surprise. Why don't you come and work for House Hart? She asks, her eyes full of genuine warmth. Fate is completely caught off guard, his mouth hanging open in shock. Is all he can manage. Roxy leans in, her expression turning serious. She tells him he won't have to worry about the Brericks anymore if he joins her house. Or are you planning to work for them for the rest of your life? She challenges him. Fate looks away, realizing how obvious his misery has been. Fate closes his eyes, moved by her kindness. He knows that taking him in will bring her nothing but headaches and political trouble. Yet here she is, reaching out a hand to pull him out of the gutter. She's willing to risk her own peace for his sake. The choice is clear. On one hand, a life of being overworked to death by the cruel Brericks and their lackeys. On the other, a rosy future serving under a mistress who actually treats him like a human being. A faint smile finally touches Fate's lips. He bows his head, his decision made. There's nothing to consider. I look forward to working for you, Roxy-sama, he says, his voice steady for the first time. The weight that has been crushing him for years finally starts to lift. Roxy's face lights up, a soft blush coloring her cheeks. Me too, she whispers. For a brief moment, the divide between a noble holy knight and a lowly gatekeeper vanishes, replaced by a simple, shared happiness. The sun begins to set over the city walls. Roxy gives him his instructions. Head to the Hart family's mansion the day after tomorrow at noon. Fate watches her leave, still feeling like he's caught in a dream. But the reality of his new life is only just beginning. The next day, Fate walks through the bustling streets of the capital. His surroundings look the same, but he is a changed man. The exhaustion is gone, replaced by a strange, buzzing energy vibrating deep within his soul. He thinks back to the skill that changed everything. Gluttony. The description was always so simple. Causes the user to become hungry. He used to hate it, thinking it was a curse that only brought him pain and poverty. How wrong he was. Now he understands the dark truth. Gluttony isn't just about hunger, it's about consumption. It devours the souls of those he kills, tearing their stats and skills away and making them his own. Every enemy he slays is just another meal to make him stronger. A cold determination settles over him. The more I kill, the stronger I'll get, he realizes, clenching his fist. The power that was meant to be his ruin has become his ultimate weapon. The hunter has finally awakened. Images of the barracks and everyone who ever looked down on him flash through his mind. He doesn't just want a new job. He wants justice. I can get my revenge. He thinks, his knuckles turning white. They will all pay for what they did. Fate continues through the marketplace, his eyes sharp and focused. To truly begin his journey and master the hunger within, he knows he needs one thing above all else. He needs a weapon that can keep up with the monster he's becoming. Fate Graphite enters an old weapon shop. He looks around tentatively as the shopkeeper approaches, sensing a potential sale. The middle-aged shopkeeper gestures toward his displays, eager to show off the blades and shields lining his shelves. The shopkeeper's smile is wide as he asks about the budget. Fate can only manage a nervous sweat, knowing his pockets aren't exactly deep. As soon as the shopkeeper realizes Fate doesn't have much money, his friendly facade crumbles instantly into a sneer. He scoffs at Fate, basically telling him he can't buy anything decent with whatever pocket change he's carrying. Fate looks down at his hand. 5 years of grueling labor, and all he has to show for it are 2 measly silver coins. It's a crushing realization. With a dismissive thumb, the shopkeeper points Fate toward a corner filled with junk, telling him that's all he can afford. In the corner sits a barrel full of rusty, chipped, and forgotten weapons, literally the trash of the shop. Fate uses his new appraisal skill on the junk pile. He can see that almost everything in there is on the verge of breaking. But then he spots it, a black sword, caked in layers of dust and oil, discarded like a piece of worthless iron. As he picks it up, Fate feels a strange kinship with a neglected blade. Suddenly, a voice echoes in his mind. Hey you. The voice is bold and arrogant. It promises Fate that it will never let him taste defeat. This isn't just a sword, it's alive. The sword, introducing itself as greed, demands that Fate buy it. It seems this discarded weapon has finally found someone worthy. With greed now in his possession, Fate takes his first steps toward becoming a true warrior, cleaning the blade and preparing for what's next. Out in the fields, Fate encounters his first target, a level 3 goblin fighter. His appraisal skill reveals the creature's stats and skills clearly. Fate strikes. As the goblin falls, his gluttony skill activates, and a system message confirms that the goblin's stats and skills are now his. More goblins appear in the tall grass. Instead of fleeing, Fate feels a dark urge to keep going. The hunt has only just begun. It's a slaughter. Fate moves through the goblins with newfound speed and precision, his gluttony skill activating over and over again. Fate pauses, marveling at greed's edge. Even as a trash weapon, the sword is incredibly sharp, cutting through monsters like paper. Fate wonders why such a powerful weapon was sold for so cheap. Greed simply replies through their mental link. I choose my own master. Fate calculates his earnings, realizing he's already made more than his gatekeeping job. Greed, ever the arrogant companion, tells him to shut up. Fate checks his status. Despite his massive stat gains, he is still level 1. It's a strange contradiction that defies the world's rules. Greed explains that gluttony is a skill that breaks the very logic of this world. It steals power directly, but bypasses the traditional leveling system. Since his skill defies the laws of the world, Fate realizes he can never join a normal party or live a conventional life. Greed simply chuckles, noting that they are more alike than he thinks, two outcasts bound by the same dark destiny. Fate resigns himself to a solitary future, but as he looks at the black blade in his hand, Greed's voice rings out with a chilling reassurance. I'm with you, aren't I? This long path might not be so lonely after all. Fate Graphite grips his new sword, feeling a strange sense of partnership. He tells Greed he'll be counting on him from now on. Greed, ever the sentient and mysterious weapon, acknowledges their meeting as nothing less than fate. Fate charges forward into his new life, with Greed promising to stay by his side until the very end. The bond between the boy with the worthless skill and the discarded sin weapon is officially sealed. The sprawling city of the kingdom remains as imposing as ever, its high walls and towers hiding the dark secrets of a world governed by inherited skills. But for Fate, the view is finally starting to change. Walking through the city in his new vest, Fate reflects on his first real hunt. Slaying 38 goblins netted him 3 silver and 8 copper coins. In a single afternoon, he has managed to exceed his entire life savings. Greed notes that Fate is looking much better, to which Fate simply smiles and wipes the sweat from his brow. That's just how life is when you finally have the power to change it. Greed starts lecturing Fate on the importance of self-maintenance. Hiring a blacksmith every time the blade gets dull would be far too expensive, so Greed suggests they go buy some tools. Fate listens, realizing that owning a sentient sword comes with a lot of unwanted advice. Greed's arrogance is on full display as he demands to be handled as carefully as a gem. Fate can't help but sigh at his self-conceited weapon, but he agrees to the task as he heads toward an alleyway. Suddenly, Fate bumps into someone in the narrow street. A harsh voice snaps at him to watch where he's going. Fate freezes, sensing immediate hostility from the man he just collided with. The man is Kasim Brasic, a rough-looking thug who is dragging a terrified young girl along by her arm. He barks at Fate to pay attention, his eyes cold and dangerous. Fate glares back, his internal alarm bells ringing. As Kasim drags the girl away, Fate reaches out instinctively. Something about the scene feels terribly wrong. He calls out for them to wait, unable to just let it go. Fate catches a glimpse of the girl's pleading eyes as she silently begs for someone to save her. The desperation in her face strikes a chord deep within him. He knows what it's like to be helpless. Fate quickly uses his appraisal skill on the thug. The results are startling. Kasim Brasic is level 15, with physical stats nearly reaching 1,000. This man is far stronger than any goblin Fate has ever faced. Fate is puzzled when the appraisal shows that Kasim has no skills listed. Greed warns him that this could be even more dangerous. What if he has a hidden skill that appraisal can't see? Fate breaks into a cold sweat, realizing the risk he's about to take. Fate begins to follow them from a distance, keeping a low profile. He can't unsee what he just witnessed. Since he already knows something illegal is happening, he refuses to walk away. He tracks them to an old warehouse district, where the buildings are crumbling and covered in overgrown vines. A perfect place for dark deeds to go unnoticed. Fate moves through the shadows, his heart pounding. Peering around a corner, Fate prepares himself. Greed acknowledges that he won't stop Fate from intervening, but he warns him that this opponent is formidable. Fate knows it's a gamble, but he's already accepted the responsibility that comes with his new power. Fate crouches low, watching the warehouse door. He tells himself that he simply cannot abandon someone in need. Suddenly, a sharp cry and a loud shout echo from inside the building, confirming his worst fears. Inside the warehouse, Kasim stands over the girl, who is now bound in heavy chains. He mocks her, telling her that even an orphan like her can be useful by becoming a toy for a holy night. The cruelty in his voice is chilling. Kasim leans in with a sadistic grin, asking the crying girl if she isn't glad to be useful. He demands that she say something, reveling in her terror as she cowers against the wooden post. A sudden impact or a sound startles the scene. Qasim's attention is momentarily diverted, and he yells for whatever is coming to go ahead and try something. The tension in the air is thick enough to cut. Qasim grabs the girl by the hair, forcing her to look him in the eye. He tells her that being submissive will only get her killed faster in the place she's going. His lack of empathy is absolute. Disappointed by her silence, Qasim eventually turns to leave the room, calling her a letdown. The girl is left alone in the dark warehouse, her quiet sobs the only sound in the empty space. Fate continues to watch, his anger reaching its boiling point. The girl slumps against her chains, her head bowed in total defeat. But then, she hears a sound, a deliberate footstep approaching her from the shadows. She looks up, her eyes wide with fear and confusion as a figure emerges from the darkness. Fate stands before her, looking down at her bound form. He speaks softly, promising her that she's going to be fine. The girl looks up, her tears still fresh, as she gazes at the stranger who has appeared out of nowhere. Fate's gentle smile offers a brief moment of comfort in the dark warehouse, a silent promise that he is here to help. Looking at her bound form, Fate's resolve hardens. He might have been a powerless gatekeeper just yesterday, but with greed at his side, he is ready to do whatever it takes to break these chains and get her to safety. Fate quickly cuts through the girl's chains with a single strike of his black blade. He tells her to come with him while the kidnapper is away, but the poor girl is so traumatized she can barely move. Their escape is cut short. Qasim Brasic appears from the shadows, leaning against a post with a mocking grin. He scoffs at Fate, calling him another one of those idiots with a high sense of justice who always seem to turn up at the wrong time. Fate realizes he can't just run. He tells the girl his plan. He'll lead her behind the stacks of cargo to keep her out of the crossfire while he deals with the threat. Qasim stalks them through the warehouse, his sword drawn. He taunts Fate, asking if he's finally done trying to act like a hero now that things have gotten real. Fate grips the girl's hand, leading her through the maze of crates. The chase continues through the narrow aisles of the warehouse. Qasim laughs, asking if Fate wants to play a game of tag. To the thug, this isn't a battle. It's just another afternoon of amusement. Greed's voice echoes in Fate's mind, asking if he knows what he has to do. Fate's grip on the hilt tightens as he prepares to make his stand, the terrified girl shivering right behind him. Fate scans the towering stacks of wooden crates. He sees an opportunity, a plan forming in his mind to use the environment to his advantage. Qasim sees Fate looking at the cargo and correctly guesses his plan. He mockingly asks if Fate was planning to bury him under a mountain of crates. He tells them not to bother, because they'd only end up buried alongside him. He tells Fate it's no use. It's time to give up. Qasim reveals his dark, twisted logic. He loves killing heroes in front of the kids he kidnaps because it breaks their spirit and makes them listen to his every word. Fate's anger finally boils over. This man is pure evil. Fate lets out a roar and charges straight at the thug. Qasim stands his ground, ready to end the boy's life, unaware that he's no longer dealing with a weak gatekeeper. Fate leaps into the air with surprising agility. Qasim laughs, thinking it's a desperate, uncalculated attack. But Fate's eyes are cold and focused. He knew exactly what Qasim would think. In a flash of black steel, greed slices through the air. Blood sprays as Qasim is struck down, his arrogant expression turning into one of pure shock. He can't believe he was just defeated by a nobody. Qasim collapses, gasping in pain. Fate stands over him, the dark aura of his gluttony skill practically radiating from his body. He demands an answer, his voice cold as ice. Fate pins the wounded thug down, demanding the name of the scum who hired him to kidnap children. Qasim groans, his strength fading fast as he realizes there's no escape. Qasim chokes out a name. Braric. Fate's eyes widen in absolute shock. The family that has spent years tormenting him is behind this atrocity. His grip on greed tightens until his knuckles turn white. The hunt isn't over. It's just become personal. Fate Graphite grinds his teeth in shock. He's just realized that Chad Braric, the man who made his life a living hell, was the mastermind behind this kidnapping. As the thief's life fades, the gluttony skill activates. Fate watches in disbelief as his stats skyrocket and new abilities like mind reading and sharp edge are added to his soul. He looks at the dead body, realizing he would have been in serious trouble if his opponent had used his arts. Before he can dwell on it, the small girl he rescued calls out to him. Fate tries to stay calm for the child's sake. He knows they need to disappear before Chad's friends come looking for their fallen comrade. Fate brings her back to the orphanage safely. Seeing the sister's tearful embrace is the only reward he needs, even if he has to stay in the shadows. Fate watches them from a distance, feeling like an outsider. He tells himself he's just helping fellow weaklings, but even he can't ignore the change in his own heart. His sword, greed, doesn't sugarcoat the truth. Fate is in no position to be a hero, and a life of constant strife awaits him if he keeps this up. Fate just sighs, deciding to head back to the Hart family. As he walks, he worries about meeting Roxy Hart's father, the head of a powerful noble family. Greed just laughs, reminding Fate that he's nothing more than a weapon himself. Fate arrives at the Hart family mansion. The sheer scale and grandeur of the place are worlds away from the rotting slums he's used to. His stomach lets out a thunderous growl, a reminder that the gluttony skill is never truly satisfied. Despite his new power, he feels small in this noble territory. Welcome back. Fate turns and freezes. Roxy Hart isn't in her armor. She's wearing a beautiful dress, looking more like a saint than a knight. The sight completely distracts him. He blushes furiously, unable to stop himself from blurting out that she looks really pretty. Roxy is just as embarrassed, stammering that she wears dresses sometimes too. She quickly changes the subject, offering to give him a tour of the estate. They walk past the beautiful fountains and manicured gardens. To Fate, it feels like a dream, but he senses a lingering melancholy in Roxy's silence. Soon, the path leads away from the mansion and into the woods. Fate realizes this isn't a normal tour when the air turns quiet and solemn. They stop before a lonely monument, a grave marked by a sword and shield, standing tall in the fading light. Roxy's voice is soft as she explains that her father was killed 5 months ago in Gaul territory, fighting against the Imperial Dragon forces. Fate is stunned. He had no idea about the war or the weight Roxy has been carrying. While he was struggling for food, she was losing her world. Fate clenches his fist, feeling a wave of guilt. He's been so focused on his own misery that he never noticed the tragedy happening right in front of him. Roxy asks him for a favor, to help liven things up in her household. She sees something in Fate that he hasn't even seen in himself yet. Fate looks her in the eye and agrees. For the first time, he isn't just surviving. He's found a place where he truly wants to be. A week passes. The garden is in full bloom, and Fate has settled into his new life as a gardener for the Hart family. Fate works tirelessly, grateful for the kindness he's shown. The other staff members notice his hard work and treat him like one of their own. The head gardener calls out for him to rest, but Fate's just happy to finally have a place to belong. For the first time in 5 years, he has a steady job and a life worth living. His co-workers, however, can't help but chuckle at his strange behavior. Between his intense reaction to a simple piece of meat and his habit of talking to his sword, they've already labeled him the mansion's resident weirdo. Fate Graphite is totally flustered. He yells at the older gardeners to cut him some slack, pointing out that it's his first time eating meat in 5 long years. But even as he argues, a loud growl from his stomach betrays him, reminding him that the hunger is far from satisfied. The elder gardeners look at Fate with genuine concern. "Hey kid, it's already past noon. Have you eaten yet?" They ask, clearly worried about the boy's constant, insatiable appetite. Fate Graphite laughs nervously, trying his best to hide the truth. "Oh, of course I have. I'm just having a growth spurt right now." He lies, sweat beading on his face as he tries to maintain his cover before the gardeners notice anything more. Suddenly, a maid interrupts their conversation with an official message. She informs Fate that Roxy Hart has personally invited him for tea. Fate quickly stands up to follow her, waving a hurried goodbye to the gardeners. He follows the maid across the estate's vast, beautiful grounds. Despite the peaceful atmosphere surrounding him, Fate's mind is elsewhere, preoccupied with the dark power stirring within his soul. Fate reflects on his new life at the Heart Mansion. It's a fulfilling job, and the food isn't half bad compared to the slums he left behind. But despite the comfort, a dark realization starts to take a heavy hold on his mind. The hunger of the gluttony skill is growing out of control, and Fate has no end in sight. He clutches his stomach in sudden agony, feeling as though the bottomless void inside him is starting to consume him from the inside out. His vision blurs as the pain intensifies, pulling him into a dark place where only the hunger exists. The curse of his power is starting to demand its due. What's wrong? A gentle voice calls out, snapping him back to the present. Roxy Hart sits across from him at a beautifully set tea table, her expression filled with worry as she notices his obvious distress. Fate snaps back to reality and tries to play it cool. Nothing at all, Roxy-sama, he replies quickly. Roxy looks unconvinced, pointing out that he hadn't been responding to her calls for several moments. Fate Graphite laughs awkwardly, scratching his head while admitting he's still not used to her calling him by his name. Roxy just smiles kindly. If he was hoping she'd go back to being formal, he can forget about it. But Roxy's smile quickly fades as she looks closer. She stares at him intently, her eyes narrowing in analysis. "You look awfully pale," she observes, her voice laced with genuine concern for his health. She leans forward over the table, her gaze fixed on him with intense focus. "Do you have a fever?" she asks, reaching out instinctively to check on him herself. Fate recoils in surprise as Roxy Hart gets close. "Roxy-sama," he stammers, his face turning bright red as the high-ranking noblewoman reaches out to touch him. Her hand touches his face, her touch soft and warm. Fate is paralyzed by the sudden intimacy, his eyes wide as he looks at her beautiful, concerned face, unable to find his voice. "No, I'm fine. All right." Fate shouts suddenly, standing up so fast that his chair clatters loudly to the ground. Roxy is taken aback by his sudden, violent reaction to her touch. Everything starts to lurch in his vision. Fate's head spins, and he realizes too late that he's pushed himself way too far. Roxy watches in horror as he begins to lose his balance. Fate Graphite faints, his body hitting the grass as Roxy cries out his name in panic. The hunger has finally sapped every bit of his remaining strength, leaving him dizzy and broken in the garden. As darkness takes him, Fate can only curse the gluttony skill that has brought him to this point. He catches one last glimpse of Roxy Hart's terrified face before everything goes completely black. A moment of total silence follows. Fate Graphite drifts in a dark, empty space, the agonizing hunger the only thing remaining of his consciousness as he lies unconscious. When he finally opens his eyes, he's in a simple but comfortable bedroom. He sits up, confused, wondering if he was carried all the way to his room by the estate staff after he fainted in front of Roxy. He noticed a note on the desk next to his bed. It's a message from Roxy Hart, telling him to take the next day off and have some fun. He realizes that despite his best efforts to hide his pain, she's genuinely worrying about him. Fate Graphite looks at his black sword, Greed, resting against the wall. "Hey, Greed," he whispers, clutching his stomach in the dark. "My hunger is growing stronger each day." Fate Graphite is terrified. He survived the gnawing hunger before, but never anything this violent. Greed's voice is chillingly final. The die has been cast, and Fate's body is no longer truly his own. Greed explains the grim reality of the gluttony skill. Once it knows the taste of souls, there is no turning back. It's a vicious, endless cycle of consumption where every ounce of strength only makes the hunger more insatiable. Fate Graphite is falling apart. He clutches his stomach, trembling as Greed's cold voice echoes in his mind, warning him that he'll eventually lose himself and attack anyone in his path. If he doesn't feed the hunger, he'll simply starve to death. Fate is horrified by the truth. He wanted a normal, civilian lifestyle, but greed won't let him forget his purpose. He wonders if he's already become a monster, destined to see other people as nothing more than prey. Greed tells him to look in the mirror and imagine his hunger reaching its absolute limit. Fate stands before his reflection in the dim light, terrified of what he might see staring back at him from the glass. He leans in closer, his heart pounding in his chest. The reflection in the mirror is starting to change, revealing a darkness that Fate Graphite has been trying to suppress since the moment he killed the thief. In the mirror, his left eye is glowing with a sinister red light. Greed's voice repeats the grim truth one last time. The die has been cast. There is no going back to being a normal human now. To satisfy the burning void in his gut, Fate Graphite heads out into the night city. Draped in a dark, hooded cloak, he moves through the alleys like a ghost, unnoticed until he runs into a pair of novice knights. The arrogant knights immediately begin mocking him. They call him a hopeless idiot and laugh at his weak-looking equipment, having no idea of the monstrous power hiding beneath his hood. They surround him, one of them grabbing Fate by the collar and demanding he say something. Fate is panting heavily, struggling with all his might to hold back the primal urge to tear them apart right then and there. But then, Fate Graphite looks up. His red eyes glow with a terrifying intensity, and the knight recoils in pure, unadulterated fear. "EK," he gasps, realizing he's staring into the eyes of a true predator. A wild, mocking laughter echoes across the dark, grassy fields outside the capital. It's Greed, thoroughly enjoying the spectacle of the frightened novice knights running for their lives. Fate Graphite sits on a rock, resting his heavy black sword. Greed is still laughing hysterically at the look on those knights' faces, but Fate isn't amused. "You're laughing too much," he mutters, feeling physically and mentally exhausted. Greed points out that anyone would be creeped out by a red-eyed man panting at them like a beast. Fate admits that they smelled delicious to him, and it took every ounce of his willpower not to assault them like common monsters. Fate touches his face, feeling the strange energy around his glowing eye. Greed confirms that it's the starvation boost at work, a violent side effect of his gluttony skill that's currently warping his senses. This boost isn't just for show. It raises Fate's basic stats, grants him night vision, and even allows him to smell his prey from miles away. It's a complete transformation into a perfect killing machine. Fate realizes that his red eye even paralyzes those weaker than him with pure, paralyzing fear. No wonder the goblins he encountered earlier were just standing there, frozen, as he approached to finish them. He looks at his cloak and armor, feeling like his equipment was almost a waste of money given how much the skill does for him. Greed tells him not to say that. They'll serve their purpose soon enough. However, this power is only temporary, a boost meant to make the gluttony skill's soul-devouring process more efficient. Fate Graphite looks out into the night, knowing he still has much to do. The field behind him is littered with the severed remains of dozens of goblins. Fate Graphite stares at the carnage, wondering just how much he has to eat to make the voices in his head finally stop. He looks down at a dead goblin with hollow, lifeless eyes. How many more of these creatures will it take for the effects of the starvation boost to finally subside? Greed tells him the hard truth. Mere goblins aren't enough to satisfy a hunger this deep. If he wants to feel full, he needs to hunt a higher species, like the hobgoblins that dwell deep in the woods. Fate sets his sights on the western forest, notoriously known as the Hobgoblin's Forest. He knows the danger is significantly higher there, but the bottomless void in his stomach is giving him no other choice. Deep in the forest, two hobgoblin fighters are resting against the trees. They look far more formidable than normal goblins, carrying heavy weapons and wearing crude armor. Using his appraisal skill, Fate Graphite analyzes his new targets. They are level 12 and possess strength buffs and dual-wielding skills. They're the perfect fuel for his growing hunger. Striking from the shadows with lethal precision, Fate Graphite catches the first hobgoblin completely off guard. His face is a mask of cold, predatory determination, giving the beast no time to even scream as he closes the distance. With a single, brutal swing, Fate Graphite decapitates his target before its body can even hit the ground. The hunt has entered a far deadlier stage, and the second creature is already in his sights as he prepares for the next kill. Fate Graphite doesn't stop for a single second. He immediately turns his attention to the second hobgoblin, who stands paralyzed with shock. The creature barely has time to understand its fate before the black sword is swinging again. Terrified, the remaining hobgoblin tries to flee back into the darkness of the forest. Fate Graphite simply TSKs in annoyance. To him, this isn't a fight. It's a harvest, and he isn't about to let any of his meals walk away. Fate catches up in an instant, driving his blade through the creature's back. As the light leaves its eyes, Fate's own gaze remains cold and predatory. He won't let a single soul escape the bottomless void in his stomach. He stands over the fallen monster, casually wiping the blood from his blade. He notes that while they were a bit tougher, hobgoblins are definitely worth more to his stats than the common ones he hunted earlier in the night. But even after devouring several high-level souls, the fire in his gut refuses to die down. A twisted, hungry smile spreads across Fate Graphite's face. It's still not enough to satisfy the bottomless hunger of the gluttony skill. I'll devour them all until I'm full. Fate Graphite cries out, lunging back into the thicket with renewed speed. He's no longer just a gardener. He's a force of nature, consuming everything in his path to maintain his sanity. The forest echoes with the screams of dying monsters as Fate Graphite keeps a ruthless count. One after another, they fall to his relentless assault, their souls being pulled into the void. By the time he finally stops, the count has reached 45. Finally, the agonizing pressure in his stomach begins to recede. Fate lets out a long, shaky breath as his vision clears and his eyes return to their normal color. The starvation boost has finally subsided, leaving him physically drained. Fate Graphite leans heavily against a massive tree, feeling the true weight of the night's work. As expected, it's tiring, he mutters to himself, his body finally catching up with the massive expenditure of magical energy. Greed's voice interrupts his rest, advising that if he's going to sleep, he'd better climb the tree first. The sword warns him that his boosted status has worn off, along with his night vision and enhanced sense of smell. Right now, he's incredibly vulnerable to ambush. Fate Graphite pulls himself up onto a sturdy branch, sitting high above the dangerous forest floor. Greed reminds him that this is only a temporary fix. He'll have to regularly defeat demons if he wants the starvation status to truly settle down. The warning from his weapon is clear. To keep the gluttony skill from consuming his own mind, he must ensure it's constantly fed with souls. If he fails, he'll lose his state of mind and assault anyone he sees, friend or foe. Fate Graphite looks down at the black sword dat across his lap, his expression grim and reflective. "Yeah, I'll do that," he whispers, accepting the dark necessity of his new existence as a soul leader. But the forest isn't done with him yet. A sudden, heavy thud shakes the branch he's sitting on. Fate Graphite's eyes widen as he peers through the leaves, catching sight of a foot so massive it looks like a fallen boulder. A massive hand with jagged claws grips a bloodied, broken body, tossing it aside like useless trash. A terrifying, hulking silhouette looms through the trees, a monster of a completely different caliber than anything Fate has ever seen. Fate watches from his hiding spot, his blood running cold with fear. "What?" he gasps, realizing that the predator has now become the prey. This monstrosity's power is on a whole other level. From behind the bushes, Fate Graphite can only watch in silence as the massive figure stands in the clearing, its mere presence radiating a level of malice that makes the hobgoblins look like children. The chapter ends on a chilling note as Fate Graphite stares up at the towering monstrosity from the shadows. What is this massive thing, and can even the gluttony skill protect him from a creature of this terrifying scale? Fate Graphite gazes up at the massive creature before him, his heart pounding. "It's 2 times my height," he thinks, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the monster. He quickly activates his appraisal skill to see what he's dealing with. As the giant stomps through the forest, Fate watches from the shadows. This is the first time he's ever seen a boss-class monster in the wild. The pressure is unlike anything he's felt before. The appraisal results are terrifying. This is a Goblin King, LV30, a creature with overwhelming strength and vitality. But what catches Fate's eye is its unique skill, auto-recovery. A skill like that could change everything for him. Fate checks his own stats. To his surprise, thanks to all the power he's absorbed with gluttony, there isn't much of a difference between his stats and the king's. Despite his low level, he actually has a fighting chance. Fate hides behind the dense foliage, his mind racing. Encountering a rare monster like this is a stroke of luck he can't pass up. He stares at the monster's back, his desire for that auto-recovery skill outweighing his fear. Yeah, that's why I'm following it, he whispers to himself. The Goblin King, LV30, sits down by a broken tree, oblivious to its stalker. It begins to eat, the gruesome sounds of bone crunching echoing through the silent forest. It's a reminder of just how brutal these creatures are. Fate watches in horror, covering his mouth to suppress a gasp. Seeing the monster feast up close is a nightmare come to life. What are you getting scared for? He asks himself, trying to stop his hand from trembling. To a monster like the Goblin King, humans are nothing more than convenient treats. Fate takes a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. He can't afford a single mistake here. He moves closer, hiding behind the same tree trunk as the monster. Go slowly and quietly, okay? He tells himself. The king remains seated, still occupied with its meal. Got it. Fate sneaks around the trunk, his footsteps light and silent. He's within striking distance now. He can see the monster's massive arm resting just inches away. One wrong step and it's over. Fate draws Greed, the blade gleaming in the dim light. He feels the weight of the sword and the intensity of the moment. Go get him, Fate. Greed's voice echoes in his mind, urging him forward. Fate's eyes sharpen with resolve. In an instant, Fate dashes out from behind the tree. He moves with a speed the giant can't possibly react to. His blade cuts through the air with a deadly hiss. A clean strike. Blood sprays as the Goblin King screams in agony. Fate has successfully severed the monster's arm before it even knew he was there. Fate lands gracefully, glancing back at the massive arm lying on the grass. Hell yeah, he cheers internally. My preemptive strike succeeded, but the celebration is short-lived. Suddenly, the ground erupts. Fate's eyes widen as he's forced to jump back from a violent shockwave. The Goblin King, LV30, isn't down yet. It's furious. Get back now, he warns himself. The smoke clears, and the king stands tall once more, clutching its massive club. Despite the lost arm, the monster's aura is more suffocating than ever. Fate readies his stance, his cape fluttering in the wind. The two lock eyes in a tense standoff. Fate can see the raw hatred in the Goblin King's gaze. He grips Greed tighter, his knuckles turning white. The real fight starts now. The king lets out a deafening roar and swings its bone club with terrifying force. Fate barely manages to dodge as the wind from the swing whistles past his ear. Fate moves like a blur, weaving between the monster's relentless attacks. Each strike from the club shatters the air, but Fate is just a step ahead, his focus entirely on survival. The Goblin King, LV30, slams its club into the ground, screaming in frustration as Fate narrowly evades yet again. The power behind the blow is enough to crush a man instantly. You won't defeat him if you just run away, Greed's voice reminds him. Fate grinds his teeth as he slides to a halt. I know, but I need to do something about that club, he replies, searching for an opening. Fate stares at the massive weapon in the monster's hand. Greed, sensing his doubt, speaks up again. That thing is nothing. Just trust me. Fate takes a breath, exhaling slowly. He has no other choice. Fate's hesitation vanishes. He looks the king in the eye and shouts, "Okay, I'll trust you." Behind him, the Goblin King charges, its scream echoing through the woods. Discarding all caution, fate charges head-on. It's a desperate collision course between a lone human and a towering giant. He raises greed high, readying himself for a clash that will decide everything. The Goblin King brings its massive club down with bone-crushing force, but fate doesn't flinch. He focuses every ounce of his will into his blade, aiming straight for the source of the monster's power. This is it, the gamble that sets the stage for his final move. Fate Graphite locks his gaze on the giant creature. Greed's voice screams in his head, "Now! Finish him!" The time for hesitation is over. His resolve is absolute. With an explosive dash, Fate lunges forward. The Goblin King, LV-30, tries to retaliate, its massive fist swinging through the air with a powerful whoosh, but Fate is too fast. He moves like a blur, closing the distance in a heartbeat. Greed cuts through the air, the black blade singing as it prepares for the final strike. Fate puts every ounce of his strength into this single swing. Fate's expression is fierce as he exerts himself. He can feel the monster's presence, the heat of the battle, and his own heart thumping against his ribs. Every muscle in his body is screaming, but he won't stop now. He gets under the giant's guard, the towering Goblin King, LV-30, looking down in a mix of rage and terror. The difference in size is staggering, but Fate is the one in control. He swings his blade upward, aiming for the lethal blow. The blade bites deep. A horizontal slash tears through the monster's torso, blood spraying from the wound. The force of the blow is incredible, leaving a trail of black light in its wake. The Goblin King, LV-30, lets out a final, agonizing scream that echoes through the night. Its massive body thumps onto the ground, the impact shaking the earth. It's over. The king has fallen. Fate Graphite stands with his back to the beast, breathing heavily. Behind him, the giant monster lies motionless. The silence of the forest returns, broken only by Fate's ragged breaths. He looks down at his hand, then up at the monster's corpse. "It's my victory," he whispers, half in disbelief. He can see the fury still etched on the creature's face, but its life has already faded away. Suddenly, the familiar notification appears. Skill, Gluttony activated. A massive surge of power flows into Fate Graphite's body as the monster's life force is converted into stats. Over 20,000 points in vitality and strength alone. The amount of power he's just stolen is staggering. The notification continues. Skill, Auto Recovery has been added. Fate watches the smoke rise from his wounds as they heal instantly. He checks his status window, seeing his stats reach astronomical levels for someone at level 1. I managed to win somehow, he thinks, overwhelmed by his own growth. Exhausted, Fate collapses onto the ground with a loud thump. Greed's voice cuts through his fatigue. "Good job. With the stats that you have accumulated, we can now unlock the first form." Fate looks at the sword in confusion. First form. Greed explains the catch. To unlock more forms, Fate Graphite must sacrifice all the stat points he's gained since they met. It's a heavy price for power, but Greed reminds him that he can always take more as his wielder. If there's a first, of course there will be a second and a third. Fate Graphite is taken aback. "Just how many points are you planning to take from me?" he asks, feeling the absurdity of the deal. Greed's response is blunt. "I'm greedy, you know." The blade warns him that unlocking higher forms requires both a specific mental state and a massive amount of status points. Fate wonders if he really needs to unlock it right now. Greed's voice turns cold. "If you don't release it, you'll only lose the qualifications to use me." Fate's eyes widen in shock as the reality of his situation sets in. Without Greed's power, he's nothing more than a victim. "Wow, what?" he stammers. The sword lies on the grass, its dark presence demanding an answer. "Either you became stronger by yourself, or we grow stronger together," Greed says. "It's an ultimatum. Either let go of me, or make me stronger. Choose now." Fate Graphite stares at the weapon, his mind spinning. Fate Graphite looks at the sword under the moonlight, his expression softening into a determined smile. He reaches out and grips the hilt tightly. "There's no need to choose," he declares, kneeling on the grass. I've already made my decision. He holds Greed close to his chest. You are my soul partner, he says firmly. Greed responds with a simple, satisfied, understood. The contract is sealed, and a new pact of blood and power begins. Light erupts from the blade as Greed begins to transform. White energy swirls around Fate Graphite, the wind whipping his hair and cloak as the transformation swooshes through the air. Fate can only watch in awe. I won't let you down. Greed's voice echoes with newfound power. The light is blinding, and Fate covers his eyes as his sword changes shape. The weight of the weapon shifts in his hand, evolving into something completely different. The power he's sensing is unlike anything he's felt before. Fate Graphite looks at his hand in disbelief. Is this? He begins, his breath caught in his throat. Greed's voice confirms his realization. Yeah, this form is your new power. The black steel has reshaped itself into a weapon of range and precision. Greed's first form is revealed, the magic bow. A sleek, black bow with a cross-shaped handle at its center. This is Greed's new form and Fate's new power. With this, he's no longer limited to close-quarters combat. He stands ready, a true hunter in the night. The next morning, the dark forest is a distant memory. Fate Graphite is in the bustling market, his usual servant attire replaced by a simple vest and shirt. He's walking alongside Roxy Hart, who has disguised herself in commoner's clothing and is going by the name Roki. Fate's face is flushed as she happily leads him through the crowd. It's good to take breaks sometimes, she smiles. Fate Graphite stands frozen in the heart of the bustling market, his internal monologue a mess of pure panic. He's struggling to reconcile his night spent fighting for his life with this sudden, sunny outing. Why is this happening? He thinks, his sweat beads betraying just how overwhelmed he feels being alone with a lady of Roxy Hart's stature. Roxy Hart, noticing his dazed expression, leans in close, her eyes filled with curiosity as she calls out to him. Faye, what are you doing? Her voice finally breaks his trance, but Fate can't shake the jarring sense of whiplash. As he looks around the peaceful town, he realizes just how quickly his world has shifted from the shadows of the forest to the warmth of the sun. Fate Graphite's heart is racing. Being alone with Roxy Hart like this, even in her civilian clothes, makes him feel like his heart might beat out of his chest. I need to calm down, he screams internally, trying to keep a poker face while she smiles radiantly. Fate Graphite looks back on the night's events, wondering how he ended up in this peaceful yet nerve-wracking situation. After the brutal battle in the forest, the transition to this casual stroll feels surreal. It's already quite late, and the memories of the night before are still fresh in his mind. Flashback to the previous night. Fate is walking through the dark alleys of the city, still wearing his torn hunting cloak. Greed, his talking sword, asks why he bothered taking the Goblin King's ears. Fate doesn't want to stand out, but he has a plan for those trophies. I need to hurry, he tells the sword, ignoring the question for now. As he navigates the silent streets, Fate Graphite spots two familiar figures lurking in the shadows. He hides behind a corner, his eyes narrowing as he tries to identify them. Who are they, he wonders, sensing a familiar, unpleasant aura. Fate decides to use the ears for something good since he already has them. His suspicions are confirmed. It's the Brerick brothers, Hato and Raffle. These arrogant holy knights are meeting a cloaked figure in a back alley, far from prying eyes. Seeing their sinister smiles, Fate Graphite knows they're up to no good. Art, one of them mutters, as they prepare to open a door. Fate Graphite watches them from a safe distance, careful not to be seen. He wonders what they're plotting this time. Are they planning to harm the Hart family again? He feels a sharp ping of concern, but he knows he can't act yet. Why did they come here while avoiding being seen? He asks himself. Just then, a heavy footstep makes him jump. Is it all right for you to be doing something like this? Greed's voice breaks his focus. Fate Graphite realizes he needs to return to his room before he's discovered. He shakes his head, deciding to leave the Brerick brothers to their schemes for now. Yeah, another time then, he mutters, slipping away into the night. And so, Fate Graphite's double life continues. By day, he lives as a humble servant, shoveling dirt and tending to the gardens of the Heart Estate. But by night, he becomes a relentless hunter, stained in the blood of goblins. His days pass without incident, or at least, that's what he hoped would happen. Back in the present, Fate Graphite is working hard in the garden when he hears the gate creak. He looks around, shovel in hand, to see a blonde girl in commoner clothes sneaking in. She looks around nervously, trying not to be spotted by anyone else. Fate is immediately on alert. Roxy-sama. Fate Graphite calls out, completely blindsided. The girl lets out a startled "Kaya" and jumps back, her face flushed with embarrassment. She wasn't expecting him to be right there. Fate is just as surprised to see his lady dressed like a town girl. Roxy Hart quickly regains her composure, though her cheeks are still pink. "Faye, don't surprise me like that," she scolds him with a pout. Fate Graphite can't help but stare at her. She looks so different in this attire. He quickly apologizes, wondering what she's doing out of her knight's armor. "But what were you doing?" he asks, still confused. Roxy Hart puffs out her chest proudly. "This is a secret inspection. I'm disguising myself as a town girl so I can blend in and observe how the citizens are doing." She explains her plan with a bright, enthusiastic smile. Fate Graphite can only say, "I see," though he's internally impressed by her dedication. "I'm sorry for stopping you then. I'll return to my job," Fate Graphite says, turning back to his shovel. He doesn't want to interfere with her noble inspection. But Roxy Hart has other plans. She reaches out and grabs his shoulder with a firm grab, as a mischievous light glints in her eyes. "I have a good idea," she says. She leans in with a playful wink. "I'm assigning you a secret mission." Fate Graphite's jaw drops. He stammers, completely unprepared for whatever she's about to say. Her proximity and the secret mission mention only make his heart race even faster. Before he can protest, Roxy Hart is dragging him toward the gate. "Escort me on this inspection," she commands with a happy grin. Fate can only let out an elongated ich as he's pulled along. She reminds him, "My name is Roki today," solidifying their cover as they head out into the city. Fate Graphite is overwhelmed. Escorting a holy knight like Roxy Hart is a hurdle that feels far too high for a mere servant. As they walk through the busy streets, he overhears some men talking. "Have you heard the rumors about the slum?" one of them asks. Fate's ears perk up. He knows the slums well. "Yeah, about that orphanage, right?" the other man replies. The rumors are spreading fast. Apparently, someone threw a goblin king's ear into the orphanage as a donation in the middle of the night. The sisters there are desperately searching for the mysterious benefactor to thank him. Fate Graphite breaks into a cold sweat. "What about the rumors of the scattered goblin corpses?" "Have you heard about it?" the men continue. Fate is internally panicking, realized his secret might not be so secret for long. "This is bad. I need to do something before I get caught." Fate Graphite thinks, his stomach churning with anxiety. He hears that the Holy Knights will be taking action soon to investigate these incidents. The image of a mysterious, glowing-eyed silhouette standing atop a pile of goblin corpses haunts his thoughts. If they find out it's him, his quiet life is over. As they pass a stall filled with trinkets and antiques, Fate Graphite spots something useful. It's a skull mask, a magical item that conceals the identity of the wearer. To onlookers, the wearer will look like a completely different person. "I can use this," he thinks, realizing this is the perfect solution to his problem. He quickly hands over the coins with a ching and thanks the vendor. Just as he tucks the mask away, Roxy Hart leans in over his shoulder. "Did you find something that you like?" she asks, startling him once again. Fate Graphite jumps, his face turning bright red as he realizes how close she is. He lets out a silent scream of surprise. He can feel the warmth of her breath, and it's doing nothing for his nerves. "Roki? Fate Graphite stammers, frantically trying to distract her from the mask he just bought. He quickly points to a nearby stall. "I found something interesting in this stall," he shouts, his face still flushed. Roxy looks at him with a confused but curious expression as he drags her toward the new attraction. The vendor watches them with a bored, knowing look. It turns out to be a gem stall. Roxy Hart's eyes light up as she gazes at the sparkling stones on display. A gem stall? It's beautiful, isn't it? She says, her civilian persona, Roki, completely captivated by the shiny treasures. Fate Graphite takes a deep breath, thankful that his distraction worked, even if his heart is still pounding. Fate Graphite looks at the price tag and winces. 1 gem or costs a whole silver coin. To a servant like him, who has to work 2 years just to save 2 silver coins. This is an impossible luxury. What's this? Roxy asks, pointing at some rough, black rocks. It's a gem, or, the vendor explains. To find out whether it has a gem inside it or not, you need to split first. It's basically a gamble. The vendor notices their interest and pitches a deal. Why don't you try your luck? It only costs 10 copper coins. Fate Graphite looks down at the pile of dark stones, then at the small stash of coins in his pocket. For a servant, it's a gamble, but seeing how much Roxy enjoys the moment, it feels like a small price to pay. 10 copper coins. He muses, already considering how to make the most of this chance. Fate Graphite looks at Roxy Hart as she admires the simple ores. In this light, the gap between their statuses seems to disappear. She isn't the powerful holy knight everyone fears or reveres. She's just a normal girl, happy and full of life. When I look at her now, she's not a holy knight, he thinks, his own expression softening with a quiet resolve. She's just Roki, determined to make this outing memorable. He prepares to reach toward the bin. Fate Graphite looks at the bin of rough ores. He knows using appraisal to find the best one is technically cheating, but he wants this secret mission with Roki to be special. His hand hovers over the stones as he scans for a hidden treasure. Here, a present, Fate Graphite says with a bashful smile, handing over a dark, unremarkable stone. It's to convey my gratitude towards you. Roxy Hart, still in her Roki persona, is delighted by the unexpected gesture. Wow, is that okay? She asks, her eyes sparkling. Roxy Hart is too excited to wait until she gets home. Let's split it now, she chirps. Fate Graphite offers to go find some tools, but the Lady Knight just smiles. With a sharp crack and a creak, she splits the hard ore with her bare hands. Fate can only sweat drop in awe, as expected from a holy knight. He thinks, yay, it's a hit. Roxy Hart cheers as the stone falls away to reveal a brilliant, glistening gem inside. Fate Graphite's plan worked perfectly. The look of pure joy on her face is worth 100 silver coins. Roxy Hart holds the gem close to her heart, her expression turning soft and sincere. I'll treasure it. I'm glad I came to town today. Fate Graphite can't help but feel a flutter in his chest. That's right, he agrees, realizing this inspection has become something much more meaningful. But their peaceful moment is interrupted by a sound of sobbing. A small boy is huddled in an alley, crying out for his mama. Roxy Hart and Fate Graphite immediately rush over. Are you lost? Roxy asks, her maternal instincts kicking in. Fate realizes they can't just leave him alone. It's okay now. Just leave it to me, Roxy Hart says, leaning in close with a wide, eager smile. She's desperate to help, but her intense energy is a bit much for the poor kid. Fate Graphite watches as the boy starts to tremble under the pressure. The boy bursts into fresh tears, letting out a loud Roxy Hart is left in a state of shock, her blonde hair seemingly turning to stone. Fate Graphite can only sigh. That's what happens when you approach him with your holy knight aura. He thinks, feeling bad for both of them. Fate Graphite kneels down and gives the boy a gentle pat on the head. Stop crying. I'll help you find her, he says with a warm, reassuring smile. The boy looks up, sniffing. You will. Fate asks who he came with, and the boy quietly replies, with Mama. Of course. We'll find her in no time, Fate Graphite promises. The boy's face lights up with a massive grin. Thank you, Oni-chan. He cheers, throwing his arms up. Fate's naturally kind nature has succeeded where Roxy's authority failed. Roxy Hart stands back, letting out a jealous pout. It must be nice getting kids to like you so easily, she mutters, her cheeks puffed out. Fake Graphite chuckles nervously, his face flushing. Maybe that's because I'm childish like them. He jokes, trying to cheer her up. All right, let's get started. Fake Graphite calls out, taking the boy's hand. Roxy Hart chases after them, feeling left out of the heroics. Not fair. I want to go too, she whines playfully. The trio sets off on their new mission, the Great Mother Hunt. They search high and low through the winding streets of the market. Roxy Hart leads the way, her civilian dress fluttering as she keeps a keen eye out for any distressed mothers. Fake Graphite and the boy follow close behind, a strange yet happy little group. Searching is hungry work. They stop to buy some grilled skewers, and the three of them dig in happily. But the peaceful atmosphere is broken by a loud growl from both Fake Graphite and the little boy's stomachs. Roxy Hart giggles behind her hand, enjoying the casual, commoner-like moment. As the sun begins to set, the mood turns somber. They still haven't found the mother. We can't find her, Roxy Hart whispers, her expression full of concern. The boy's eyes well up with tears again as he quietly mutters, Mama. Fake Graphite looks up at the darkening sky, feeling the weight of the situation. They'll have to put the search on hold soon. Roxy Hart kneels before the boy, her gaze incredibly kind and tender. Stay at my house for today. We'll resume the search again tomorrow. I'll make sure to treat you nicely. Fake Graphite is struck by her generosity. She truly is a holy knight at heart, always putting others first. The boy gives a small, hopeful nod. Fake Graphite watches them, his expression a mix of admiration and a strange, unidentifiable emotion. Roxy Hart looks up at him with a gentle smile, and he can only respond with a quiet okay. Realizing just how much he respects this woman, he knows he has to protect her, no matter the cost. Suddenly, the boy's head snaps toward the crowd. Mama! He screams, his little legs moving in a frantic dash. From the opposite direction, a distraught woman in commoner clothes comes running. My boy! She cries out, her voice filled with relief and desperation. The mother and son collide in a tearful embrace, holding each other tight. Fake Graphite and Roxy Hart watch from the sidelines, their own faces lighting up with happiness. I'm glad he found her, Fate says with a relief. Roxy nods. Yeah, I was preparing for the worst. It's a perfect ending to their long day. The boy waves his arms excitedly. Thanks for helping me, Oni-san. One-chan. The mother bows repeatedly, her face stained with tears of gratitude. Roxy Hart and Fake Graphite bow back, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. Even as Roki and her escort, they manage to do some good today. As the mother and son disappear into the distance, Fake Graphite watches them go with a happy smile. But his thoughts quickly shift as he realizes the time. We didn't manage to inspect much today, he notes with a tired chuckle. Roxy Hart stands nearby, looking unusually quiet. Fake Graphite turns to look at Roxy Hart and is immediately struck by her beauty. The twilight light catches her hair, and her expression is one of deep, serene thought. He feels his face heating up, his pulse quickening. She's so much more than just a holy knight to him now. Roxy Hart notices his intense stare. Is there something on my face? She asks, leaning in curiously. Fake Graphite panics, his face turning bright red as he quickly turns away. It's nothing, he stammers. He suddenly remembers the real trouble waiting for them. We should get back soon. The head maid will be angry. The memory of the strict maid makes him break into a cold sweat. I just remember it. I have to return to my territory sometime soon. Roxy Hart blurts out, her voice a bit forced as she tries to hide her anxiety about the late hour. Fake Graphite sees right through her and offers a knowing, playful smile. You're trying to change the subject to avoid thinking about the head maid's anger, aren't you? Roxy lets out a nervous laugh, her face flushing as the reality of their secret day out finally settles in. Roxy Hart looks down, her fingers nervously fiddling with the ruffles of her dress. Abandoning her deflection, she looks up at Fake Graphite with a shy, vulnerable expression that makes his heart skip a beat. Will you stay with me if I get scolded? She asks in a quiet, hopeful voice. Fate is completely flustered, his own blush deepening as he looks in her eyes, ready to give the only answer he possibly can. Fate graphite smiles, his face glowing with a genuine, heartfelt blush. I will, he promises, his voice steady with a newfound resolve. Roxy Hart smiles back, her civilian disguise, Roki, making her look softer and more approachable than ever. Okay then, she replies, her own heart feeling lighter than it has in years. As the sun sets on their secret day out, they walk through the quiet alleys of the city together. Let's go, Roxy-sama, Fate calls out. Let's go back to our home. These simple words mark the end of their brief escape. But for Fate, they signify the beginning of a life worth protecting, no matter what shadows may lurk in his path.